At Spurs, I literally just fought with Zidane. He was kind of one of the first midfielders I looked at and was like, yeah, you're playing a different game. Stevie treats you like you've walked in his house with your shoes on. A £3,000 instant fine and then like £1,000 a minute.
What?
Manchester United and Sir Alex Ferguson have bid £1,000. We knew we had a good player, but it was the night Gareth Bale was born.
Yo, what's going on, people? It's your boy Adebayo Akinfenwa, and welcome back to another episode of the Beast Podcast. All right, today I'm gassed because this individual was a Premier League midfielder who went toe-to-toe against the greats. So you're talking about Fabregas, Roy Keane, Vieira, Scholes, my GOAT, Stevie G. Not only that, regular in the Champions League, captained his club at 17, scored for England. See, now, this one's a real one. There's levels to this. Also showed his mental fortitude. See that fortitude? Big boy word, by the way. Come back from injuries. So that just shows the guy's determination. So please give a beast mode welcome to my guy, Mr. Jermaine Jenas. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you very much, brother.
Hey,
nice
fortitude.
intro.
Well, you get what I'm saying?
Fortitude was strong.
Fortitude, that's a big word because I know you're intelligent. So I knew that. You get what I'm saying?
I liked it.
But listen, real talk. On this podcast, what we like to do is it's all about inspiration and giving flowers. So before we get started, and see, what's this thing about, like, we've had hella man that like golf.
Oh, yeah.
So you may have to invite me on one of these golf trips to see,
come.
like, yeah, these buzz and that sort of thing. So for myself and everybody with the Beast Mode family, here's what we've got for you. Gifts for it. Look, when you play golf, personalised for you. Do you know what I'm saying? It's flowers from us.
Wow, it's got my name on it.
But we don't play games here.
This is proper.
We don't play games here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Flowers out here.
I appreciate it.
All right, cool. Listen, we're going to jump right into this because, like I said, I'm looking forward to this. First and foremost, let me ask this question. Bud, you captained your club at 17.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah, it was a crazy kind of situation. I think, like, when I was coming through at Forest, I think there was always this feeling amongst, like, the older pros where it was like, oh, you'd walk down the corridor and they'd be like, oh, you're the next one. You're coming soon type thing. And they would kind of like take me in. So, like, even when I was like 15, they kind of treated me different in a weird way. Like, a lot of the other like scholars or whatever, they would kind of be, I was doing jobs, but they would get me in the dressing room, they'd sit down and we'd have conversations and so on and so forth. But I mean, to kind of get the armband when I did was wild because we had some experienced pros in that dressing room. You know, people like Ricardo Shimika, Chris Bart Williams was in there.
Yeah.
There was a number of, Marlon Harewood was in the squad at the time. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, I think, from a manager's point of view, it was just like, look, you're ready and you've led all the way throughout the youth team, but also these players respect you that much type thing. It was like, so go and do it. And I remember he called me into, you played at Forest, obviously, and where the first team dressing room is, you kind of have to kind of come out the dressing room, go left, and then you go left again, and the manager's room's just on the right hand side. And he called me before the game. He was like, come and see me in the office. I've gone in. He went, listen, you're captain today. And I was like, wow. Anyway, I said, look, love it. Can't wait. Give me the armband. And I've gone back into the dressing room and all the lads are there and I'm just waiting for someone to say something.
Yeah.
But they all were just like, look, we're behind you type thing. When we get it. So it was a special moment for me in my career so early on to walk out in my stadium, in my hometown with the armband on, leading the team at 17. It was wild.
I can't fathom being a senior pro.
Yeah.
And a 17-year-old
That's what I
being
mean.
my captain. I can't.
I know.
And but it's the champs.
Yeah,
it's the football league,
It's proper down
So
there.
it's proper.
Yeah.
So I beg, just a couple, paint the picture of what the changing room's like, just as a whole. And also, what was your mentality like? Was you a person that walked into a room and you was vocally loud? I won't say loud, or was your energy... Was it your energy, your presence, so you didn't have to say much? What's you as a youngster?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, I think that, like, those dressing rooms were brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal places to go. Obviously I touched on the fact that they kind of took me in and so on, but you still, when you walk by the first team dressing room, you kind of went by it quick.
Yeah.
Just in case they called you in to like dance, sing them a song. Like, that's what they used to do. You'd be walking down the corridor, JJ get in here, or so-and-so like Reedy, Dorse get in here, and you'd be like, oh, what do you want? They'd be like, sing us a song. And you'll be like, oh my word, what is going on? And you just have to stand there and sing for the whole like dressing room. Obviously going to get them cups of teas, and they had me doing everything. I remember like David Johnson one time when I was like, I think I was like 16. I wasn't even able to drive. He just finished training, took me his keys to his SLK one day, went, take that round the corner and go and get it clean for me. And I was like, what? I was like coming out the car park like so slow with his SLK, and it was tight as well to get into the car wash. Washed his car, brought it back. I was like, there you go, Jono. But yeah, I think they were brutal places. But there was, I think for me, there was a level of respect that they kind of understood that it weren't going to be long before I was going to be in that dressing room.
Okay.
To answer the second part of the question, which was, what was I like? I honestly, when I look back, I can't put into words whether it was just like, was I that arrogant as a footballer when I was a kid? But I know that I used to sit in, when you used to play on a Saturday morning, and then Saturday afternoon you used to go and watch the first team.
Yeah.
And I used to sit in the stand and just, in my mind, I'd be like, how am I not playing in this team?
Okay.
That's just what I was like.
Yeah.
I just used to kind of look at those players and think, look, they're all top players, and also had great careers. There was Andy Johnson, who was at Norwich, spent some time at Palace, at Forest, and he was physical, he was vocal, he was a very kind of like alpha male in the dressing room. Then you had Bart Williams, who was he was techie, he was he was a brilliant player in there. Gareth Williams had just come through as well. And I remember kind of like one of my first training sessions when I first got called up by David Platt, and we were walking down the Trent to the training ground, and Gareth Williams said to me, he went like, just be careful today. And I was like, why? He went, just watch your back. And I was thinking, obviously someone's coming for me or whatever, because you're the new guy, and they've and when you get your opportunity, you've always got those experienced pros that are going to be like, it's not happening.
100%.
This is my place, it's my money.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of like, I'm in midfield, I'm waiting for the ball, and I'm just kind of like scanning, waiting for someone to come and take me out. And the ball comes in, and it was a bit of a slow one, and I kind of like ambled towards it, but I knew someone was coming. And then as the ball was getting close, I quickly got there and turned, and like as I turned, Andy Johnson just came flying through, and he just come to wipe me out. And I just heard a bit of a whey, do you know what I mean? And that was like, it was one of those kind of moments that everybody went, nah, he's ready, type thing. So I think that my confidence, the belief I had in myself, the arrogance that I had, which you have to have as a footballer, to play at the top level, just kind of held me in good stead. And from that moment on, the respect levels were there. And, I think that's why when I kind of got the armband, it was like, well, what we're going to say, he's on his way.
So, and this is no disrespect to Forest. So Forest is in the champ at the time. Yeah. So how, you've touched on it in regards to your confidence, but how early did you feel like, okay, cool, I'm too good for the champ?
Honestly, I didn't think that. I hated the Championship.
Oh.
That place was hell.
Yeah.
Like, it was hell. Because in the Championship, what I realised is nobody's got any respect for anybody. So we don't care what your name is.
Yeah.
Like, we don't care. And actually, at that particular time in the Championship, I think like, I remember playing against Bradford, and they had like Benito Carboni playing for them. You went to Sheffield United, and it was that era of like Tong and Michael Brown, and Keith Curle was still there. We went to Wolves, and Paul Ince is in midfield. I've got Muscat trying to break my leg every 2 minutes. It was I could not wait to get out of the Championship. There wasn't a moment where I thought I'm too good for the Championship. I just knew that from a technical side of things, I handled things with ease. But the physical element to the Championship, I had to learn fast, because they, like I said, they were brutal. They would kick you to pieces. The refs didn't care, and they would test you. They would really test you. And I would play on a Saturday, and my manager at the time, if it was David Platt or Paul Hart, would say, "You're in tomorrow." On a Sunday, all the lads would be off, and I'd be in the gym on a Sunday doing gym sessions after every single game on a Saturday. So, Forest knew what they were doing, but at the same time, it was like I still had to kind of do the work. So there was not one part of me that looked at the champ and thought, oh, this is easy or whatever. It was just that I knew there was clubs circling and it could potentially happen.
So, to be fair, I'm glad, because is it true Sir Alex Ferguson wanted to bring you to Man United? Yeah,
well, there was 3 clubs at the time. I'm bearing in mind, like I'm playing for my hometown club, captain. I'd literally just bought a flat on the River Trent, like this amazing apartment. And I used to wake up on a Saturday morning, and I'd see the fans coming into the stand. And I used to look at it and go, I'm going to play there this afternoon.
man.
Like, that's my back garden today.
Yeah,
like,
man,
I was in heaven.
Yeah.
And we had a day off on a Wednesday once, and I get a phone call from Paul Hart, who was my manager at Forest at the time, and he just said, look, I need you to come in. So I came in, and he basically just said to me, look, 3 clubs have put in a bid. Manchester United and Sir Alex Ferguson have bid £3 million because he said it's an honour to play for the football club, so he's not paying a penny more. David O'Leary at Leeds at the time when Rio was there, Robbie Keane, there was Champions League team. He's going to bid 5 million. He wants you. He says, but you're not going there. And Newcastle have bid 5 million, and basically the car's going to be here in an hour. And I was like doing the maths. I was like, it takes a lot longer to get, from Newcastle to. So they'd already kind of, but in Paul's defence, he'd just left Leeds and he knew what was happening there.
Okay.
So he was like, you're not going there. And I think Forest at that particular time, financially, there was talk about them going into administration and they needed the money. So obviously the bid for Newcastle was more beneficial to them. But in my mind, I was like, well, I need to consider United. But the reality was I going to play there? If I'm going to leave Forest, I want to be starting week in, week out.
So you're 19 at this time, right?
I was 18. 18, yeah. I mean, at that particular time made me the 3rd most expensive teenager in the world.
Yeah.
Behind like R9 and Robbie Keane, basically. So there's a lot of pressure around it.
So let's just say that again, because
I dropped it in there.
Yeah,
casually.
you know the ones where you just say little bars and you be like, whoa. Let's just rewind to that bar.
Yeah,
there,
it was a big bar. I'm not gonna lie. It comes out every now and again, but. Yeah, I mean, to be behind R9 and Keno, it was special.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't speed past that.
No.
Continue.
It was special, yeah. But yeah, so I'm in the car basically on the way up, and David O'Leary's ringing my agent non-stop, and he's like ignoring the call. And then Bobby Robson rings me, and he's just like so enthusiastic on the phone. He's like, son, I can't wait to see you. You're not coming up here to be like a bit part. You're going to be playing. And I was just like, get me up there now. So
18.
Yeah.
And Man United. So Man United.
Yeah, big. And they were flying at the time.
Flying.
Yeah.
That's a real. So was that just a decision you made? Of course, you would have talked to your agent, but you was like, look, man, I'm 18 and I want a ball.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, there was definitely more pressure for me to go to Newcastle.
Why?
Well, like I said, like the car was there, There
it
wasn't like,
okay, cool.
It wasn't like, let's sit down and talk about this.
Yeah.
Like the car was there. They were getting me up that motorway as quick as possible because they knew that the 5 million offer was bigger. But at the same time, when I'm in the car on the way up, I'm thinking United, but Scholes, Varane, Roy Keane, Bex, like there's Nicky Butts there, and they're all in their pomp, and I'm thinking, am I getting in this team straight away? Probably not. I'd have probably been, under 21s and fed in through the system. A young Darren Fletcher's there as well, and that's not to say that I didn't, I wasn't able to go and compete with them. I would, but I just knew that I wanted to be playing Premier League football, and the quicker I got through the door and on the pitch to be a Premier League footballer, I was able to then establish myself. Whereas I felt like I'd done the work in the Championship, that I don't want to go and do it again for the under-21s for United. They just kind of, they sold it to me. And as soon as I got there to Newcastle, I mean, it was funny up there. We had no training ground at the time. We used to train on like this abandoned bowling green and like on fields and stuff. So somebody said, take him to the training ground. And Bobby was like, no. And I was thinking, why not? I want to go and see what the training ground's like. Because at Forest, it was nice as well at the time. And he was like, no, take him down the quayside. So I think like me and the chairman's sons and my agent, we go down the quayside. We're in a restaurant, couple of drinks, and I'm going, what's going on here? This is different. You know what I mean? Am I supposed to be signing for the club?
Yeah.
And St. James's Park, in that big stand, it's got like a 4-bedroom apartment right in the middle of it. And it's like plush like apartment. And so we'd finished having a few drinks, had a night out. They put me in this apartment. And so I woke up on the Saturday morning. And in my mind, I was like, I love this place. I need to stay. And I literally walked across the corridor and into the box. And I said to my agent, where's the contract, man? We need to sign this now. And then I think they were playing Bolton at home. And, I watched the game and I was like, I'm going to be playing for this club.
Question. So, listen, like anything, League One, League Two, Champ, what was the step up like from Champ to Prem?
So, there's two elements to that question. From a training perspective, it was like chalk and cheese. Like it was so much quicker, so much more quality, so much fitter. the mistakes are minimal. And I mean, even in training and possession, you give that ball away, people are letting you know. I think when it came to like the games, I personally found it easier to play in the Premier League than I did the Championship.
Okay, I've heard that, to be fair.
There's more of a technical element to the Premier League, where I found it was like, okay, you've got the ball, so what are you going to go and do with it?
Yeah.
Is what the mentality of the Premier League is. So I'm fit, I'm technically good, and also you're playing with better players. I remember coming back we played a pre-season friendly. Once I'd signed in January, I'd played half a season, and part of the deal when they sold me was that Forest played against Newcastle in a pre-season game. And I played in the game, and I remember my manager, Paul Hart, came up to me after the game and he was like, why are you making all these runs? Like, how are you doing this all of a sudden? And I was just like, look, I was making these runs in your team, but I'm only going to do it so many times when I don't get the ball. Do you know what I mean? And I'm making runs from midfield, and I've got Nobby Solano with a laser in his foot going, bang, there you go, Jay. Lauren Ribeiro on the other side, bang, there you go. So it incentivizes you to just keep making runs. As you'll know, as a striker, if you've got someone who can whip in the ball.
I didn't do runs. Let's just go
big
with
hold
that.
up, man.
Yeah. Die. Cool.
But yeah, that's all it is. You're playing with better players, so your efficiency goes up, but also responsibility goes up, and everything that comes with that. So, and I was playing in a team of men that did not mess about. You was held accountable for every single minute that you were in training and you were on the pitch. So yeah, you had to just go out there and deal with it.
First season that you said you played, who can you remember that you came up against and was like, shit?
Yeah.
Baller.
Yeah. Well, my first 3 games were mental. I mean, my debut was Sunderland away.
Oh, snap.
Time Weir Derby, which was great for me in a weird way, because as big as that game is, to me, from Nottingham, don't really mean anything.
I hear you.
Don't get me wrong, that week, I
you
had,
feel the energy.
Yeah, that week, everyone's like, you better win that freaking game. And I'm like, whoa, huge game.
Yeah.
And then you get to Stadium of Light, and it's like, we got off the coach, and pennies are getting thrown at us. And I was like, this is wild. But once, at that particular time, Sunderland were like second bottom. They still had like Phillips and now Quinn up top.
Yeah.
And were dangerous. But they were, they weren't a great team. And we went and beat them 1-0. And once we beat them, I played really well. That was like, right, this kid's ready.
Yeah.
And it allowed me then to go. But then my second game was Arsenal at home. So I came up against Vieira instantly. And then my second game was Liverpool away. It was like Gerrard and Danny Murphy. And it was just like, you're in. Like, you're in the deep end. You're going to have to, sink or swim. I think the Vieira one was eye-opening, to say the least. Yeah, it was just...
Tell us. I mean, what was it about Vieira?
Vieira, way more technical than I think people give him credit for. Way more technical.
Right.
So, he wasn't just a physical specimen in terms he's going to impose on you. He'd flick the ball over your head. He would do Cruyff turns on you. He'd chop, he'd run past you with the ball. He was ridiculously technical. And you just had to be careful of how you handled him. If you got too close to him, he'd just throw you out of the way.
Right.
So you had to kind of get your distances right. And also you couldn't see the ball. His feet were that big. You couldn't actually physically see the ball at times. So I used to have to do this thing where, like for second balls, when the ball kind of like used to go long from the keeper, I used to have to try and creep on his shoulders where he couldn't quite see me. And then as it was knocking it down, then I would time my run to try and take it off him. And also like when he was around you, you just had to be, especially at Highbury, when it was Highbury, that old ground, if you took more than 2 touches at that ground, you were finished.
He was gone. Yeah.
So, and I learned that at Forest. When I was at Forest, I remember Bartman, God rest his soul, would always come up to me and be like, 1-2 touch, first 10 minutes. And no matter where I was on the pitch, just go bang, bang, bang. And then eventually players would drop off, and then obviously you turn. And so I took that kind of mentality into the Prem, just those learnings. And, against those top players and those top teams, those details really matter. So, people like Vieira or like that. Stevie treats you like you've walked in his house with your shoes on.
But I get, I've heard
that's his
that.
vibe.
Yeah.
That's his vibe.
I'm talking about from players. I've heard
that's his
that.
vibe. It's like you go to Anfield against Steven Gerrard, you're going to know about it. And he never let you down, basically. And that's why it was so hard to play against him. And in my opinion, he's the best of the, the midfield kind of, trio that gets spoken about. Because of every element to his game. He was just a different beast. And you couldn't really stop Stevie, because even if it was like, and you remember when we were, when I was playing the Premier League, it was me against you. It wasn't like, he's playing in the hole.
Yeah, it's not tactics.
It was like,
it was man v man. Yeah.
Eye to eye ball, whoever wins this battle wins the game type football. And Stevie used to do these things where he'd go to like right back and he'd hit these balls to like Michael Owen that were like you know, people talk about De Bruyne, like Stevie was doing that then. You know, like these mad, crazy, like whipped kind of balls into the channel, and Michael would get onto it, and it was like you couldn't. You'd see him at right back and think, what are you doing there? And then before you know it, someone's in on goal, and you're like, oh, I need to deal with that now. So it was just, again, learning about everything, and that's without, you know, stepping into Anfield and being like, wow. You know, first time playing in this stadium when it's so big. So every single game was a learning experience, but it was like, I was just on cloud 9. So it didn't really, you know, the energy I was working off was just, it weren't food.
Was you, I would say nervous, but so even them 3 games, did you have a ritual that you used to do before games when you knew it was Vieira? Was your mindset like, I'm going to lift him up? Or when it was Stevie J, I'm going to lift him up. Was that your mindset?
I think I was just, again, I was still overly confident. You know, I think, you know, like I said to you about that £5 million price tag, in my mind, I was still like, well, there's a reason why they've paid this money for you, Jay. Right. So there's nothing to be fearful of. And also, the reality is when you're young, you know, mistakes are acceptable. The kind of like bandwidth to how you play the game and what you're actually able to do is, if you have a great game, oh my God, he's only 18 years old. And if you have a bad game, it's like, well, he's still got time. Whereas once you get to like 26, 27, that gets a lot tighter. And people then start expecting a lot more. And also people learn about your game and what you're good at and what you're not good at. So there was a lot of people that I played against who didn't know how quick I was, or how my energy levels were so high, or that I could score goals. They were like, oh my God, that's taken them by surprise. So the early stages, I was very like, yeah, this is just fun and no fear. My first game against Sunderland, I think because it was an early kickoff, it was like a 12 o'clock kickoff. And I remember coming down from the hotel, I saw Shearer's eating like chicken, pasta, beans, Speedo. They're all eating all this like mad, big, like wholesome plates of food. And I was like, there's no way any food is going in my belly right now. And the fitness coach comes up to me and he's like, you need to eat. Like, we've got a game. I said, just get me a Lucozade. I'll be good. Like, it's fine. I've got energy. Don't worry. And he was like, you need to eat something. I said, if I eat anything, I'll be sick everywhere. So I just grabbed the Lucozade, and then once I got out there, I had all the energy in the world. I'm 18 years old, you know what I mean? I was probably living on pot noodles at the time, and Lucozade, I was good.
To be fair, you mentioned it. So when you went to that changing room, the Newcastle, the likes of Alan Shearer, Clivert, Woodgate, these are big names. 2 things I want to know is, who impressed you first, and what was it like going into, because I can only imagine, you know, you see these people and you know them, you know what I'm saying? But they may not know you. So what was it like going into that change room? And then who impressed you the most? I
think the most impressive person I saw was Craig Bellamy at that particular time.
Oh, okay.
You know, Bella's had just come off the back of winning Young Player of the Year, louder than loud, as you can imagine. You know, he walked into that dressing room every single day like he was the king. Shearer was at the back end of his career, but knew what he was and was the captain of the club and ran the city, basically. Gary Speed for me was the one that I always kind of turned to. Bobby placed me in the dressing room, Speedo on one side, Shearer on the other side. I sat in the middle of them, and Speedo was always kind of like almost like my counsel in a weird way. He would guide me. When I first arrived, I remember him going to speak to my mum and saying, look, don't worry, I'm going to look after him. And he was an unbelievable man that went kind of above and beyond, but also kind of set the standards in training. So like first pre-season, Speedo kind of is playing the role of like a coach, where, you know, I'm in the top group running, and he's like, you need to go, like run past me, go, like you're fitter, go. And he would always drive the standards. But yeah, Bellamy, Dyer, Robert did some silly stuff in training that you wouldn't, not as in like unbelievable talent. But yeah, they were all at the peak of their powers at the time. But Bella's for me was you know, my first 10 days in training were probably the worst 10 days of training I ever had in my whole career. Balls going under my foot, like there's a bit of nerves, and all I can hear is Bella's going, how much have we paid for him? How much? What's going on here? And I'm thinking, Jesus, I need to sort this out. And that's why that Sunderland game was so big for me, because after the game, he was like, okay, I get it now. It makes sense. But yeah, they, you know, the whole bunch, the one thing I took from Newcastle is the accountability. There was no like academy type mentality. Like you'd come in at half time, chairs would be getting thrown around, fights would be starting, there'd be fingers pointed in people's faces, you're not doing your job, you're not doing your job. And, then Bobby Robson had come in like 5-10 minutes later and everyone sit down, this is what we're going to do. But the accountability in the games was, at 18, I was like, whoa, I ain't seen anything like this before.
Yeah. So the first 2 seasons you played Champions League. So you played the likes of Juventus, Inter, Barcelona.
Yeah,
like,
crazy.
what was that like? And what was the difference at such an early or such a young age between Premier League and then there's just the infamous names in there. What was that like?
Yeah, again, another step up, another huge step up. I think my first game was, so we had a Champions League qualifier, which we won. And I think my first game was Inter Milan away. And I mean, I grew up on Italia 90. So, and actually the San Siro to this day is my favorite stadium to play in.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's like, anyone who's been to the San Siro or been fortunate enough to like have any kind of tour or anything like might know what I'm talking about here. But like the actual guts to the San Siro is a bit of a shithole. Like the dressing rooms are tiny.
Yeah.
Like I remember going to the toilet and all they had was these 2 handles and a freaking hole in the ground. And I was like, this can't be the San Siro. What's going on here?
Yeah.
But then, you come out of the steps and all you can see is just smoke everywhere. And it was just, I don't know, I was just very fearless as a young player. I was more excited than nervous most of the time.
Yeah.
So, you're going into these games and, Zanetti's playing, Christian Vieira's playing, and I got Cordoba and all these names that you've heard about and played on Parivo. Do you know what I mean? I was like, this is, Adriano, all these guys. I'm thinking this is amazing. I don't know if Adriano was there, but still, it was just a special place where, again, it was just about passing the test. But European football at that particular time was a completely different game, which I don't really see anymore. I think the games are all very similar all over the world.
Yeah.
Whereas it was a bit slower. So they would kind of like lure you into this false sense and then it'd be like bam, 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 and it'd get really quick and the fans would go up and you had to really control what was going on with the fans. You'd also have to control the referees, which was impossible to do in Europe. And then you had to deal with the fact that these hugely imposing European giants were always favoured by like referees in particular at home. You're always up against it basically. Yeah. But yeah, the standard that you're playing against, going to Juve, and playing against Del Piero and Davids and Nedved, these guys have been there and done it. They've lifted the trophies. They're looking at you like, you don't know what you're up against there. And we didn't, you're learning along the way. And they were all huge experiences that then you come back to the Premier League and you're like, okay, I'm finding the Premier League a little bit easier now because I've just gone up against Davids and Nedved at the weekend. Yeah. And now I'm playing against, I don't know, no disrespect, maybe like Southampton. Yeah. I can deal with this. My confidence is here now because I've had eyeballs on me on the biggest stage. And that's kind of then how you start to grow, like in that environment.
So you was talking, off air, we was chatting about that game where Del Piero scored. So, you reeled off some names and you've done that. Like, I see it. Like,
yeah.
Was he the special one?
Yeah, he was different. I think they up front, they had Del Piero and Trezeguet and he whipped in this free kick, and you just see a ball move, and you're like, I've not seen a ball move like that. How's he done that type thing? And he was just, there are certain players. We had Shearer at Newcastle. You've got Gerrard in Liverpool, and obviously, what Del Piero is in Turin. They're gods. Totti and Roma. When they're in that sphere of, I own this city because I have given so much to it. They just do special things. And, Del Piero was one of them where it was like, I think Thuram was in that team. That was a proper team. And I don't think they went on to win it that year, but, he was one that you kind of look back and went, I can see why you went on to do what you did in your career because it was just special,
So up until that period, and of course, it seems like football came easy. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Up on, I know what work you put in, so I'm not ever trying to take that. But when is that the first kind of point where you're just like, okay, this is different. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I remember so I went to Newcastle in January, and then in my first season at Newcastle, I won Young Player of the Year. I had a great season, and it was like I'd made my debut for England at 19. I've won Young Player of the Year, and I'm like, I've cracked the code. Like this game's easy.
Yeah.
Second season comes along, and you're like, oh, okay, this is different now. And whether it was just a slip in my mentality, whether I didn't put as much work in. I'll tell you what I probably did, put the same amount of work in. And that's not enough.
I hear you.
You got to level up. You got to keep leveling up year in, year out, week in, week out. And I probably just did everything the same as I did the year before, expecting the same results. When you're not realizing people are chasing you. I got people like Scott Parker looking at me going, I want that place. I got Carrick looking at me going, I want his place in the England team. And I was just kind of, I think I coasted a little bit for about 6 months. And then you're kind of you're in the quicksand a little bit and you got to get out of it. So, you know, that second season at Newcastle just took me a lot longer to get out the mud. And we had little things that kind of went against us. We lost the Champions League qualifier earlier on in the season. So we lost on penalties at home. So that lost that kind of momentum of consistently playing Champions League football. We then dropped down into the Europa League, which probably stunted the club financially to do what it wanted to do, which slowed our team down a little bit. But all of these things are, you know, lessons that you realize actually the game don't stop. You know, it's come to me fast, and I have accelerated, you know, very quick in this game to the very, you know, top of club football. But if you rest on your laurels, you will quickly, you know, slide back down. And I think luckily for me at that time, Bobby Robson and that experience out in the dressing room helped probably, you know, just kind of get the train back on the tracks.
So from outside looking in, Newcastle was going cool, you know what I'm saying? But then how did the Spurs thing come around?
Yeah, I mean, they sacked Bobby, which was probably bigger for a lot of the players than I think the club understood at that particular time.
What was he like? Just because outside look, he just seemed like somebody you want to play for.
Yeah, look, Bobby was like, that's exactly what he was. You know, I don't think there's actually one moment that I looked at and was like, what an unbelievable tactician.
Okay.
Like, we used to have a laugh because he used to have this clipboard and he would just like, he'd flip the team over and he'd be like, right, this is the team. And he used to have like 2 pens in each hand. And he'd be like, Jenas Dyer, I want you going up and down like 2 pistons, Laurent. And I swear to you, you could have invited the opposing team to come in and look at it and they'd have gone, what the hell is that? What is their plan? But it was all excitement and energy and like the personal touches. So, you know, he would come up to me maybe on like, I don't know, like on a Thursday at training when he hadn't named the team. And he'd just say, look, you're playing at the weekend. You know, give me a good performance and I'll let you go home and see, you know, your parents and your mates, and you can come in, I don't know, next Wednesday or something. And I'd go out there running around like a crazy person. But then he also had the other side to him where if he saw something in training that wasn't quite happening, if he was going out too much, he'd nip it in the bud. So he was just very personable about how he dealt with you. And I think because he took me on as an 18-year-old kind of boy, basically, he felt almost like more responsibility around how he managed me. And he was amazing to play for. So when he got sacked, it definitely rocked me because I was a bit like, oh, like we were like 5th in the league, doing all right. I had a couple of results here and there that didn't quite go our way, but there was no reason to sack him. But there was this kind of like thing circulating that he'd lost the dressing room and that the youngsters were running riot and doing what they wanted. And it wasn't true. It really wasn't true. And then they bring in Graham Souness. And for me, I was like, if they're going to replace him with anybody, a midfield great, I can learn from this guy. And it just didn't quite go that way, really. You know, he was, again, a very personable manager that you could speak to, but I didn't get what I needed from him in terms of knowledge on the pitch, I would say, at that age. And obviously there's an element where you got to put in the work yourself, but at the same time I was a bit, I don't know, there was a lot of just ups and downs with him. Like, he made me captain. Again, I'm going to get out against Crystal Palace. Kluivert's on the pitch, Bellamy's on the pitch. I think Shearer was injured. I'm leading the team out. And then he'd do that. And then 2 weeks later, I'm playing left back against Spurs in the quarterfinal FA Cup. And I'm like, what's going on here? The confusion with him just rocked me a little bit. And I was so desperate to go to the World Cup in 2006 that I knew I needed to make a move.
So as from a player's point of view, can you highlight the difficulties of not knowing? So the confusion, the reason why I use confusion is because it's the same. Look, we've had it where 1 week we're like, all right, yeah, man, the manager gets it. Like, he's making me captain. And then the next week, and without conversations or not, just if you can.
Yeah, it just rocks the boat, don't it, from a stability point of view? Like, there's things that happen on the pitch, there's things that happen off the pitch, and all you want as a player is like, tell me what my job is, I'll go out there and do it, And if I'm not doing it, tell me, correct me basically. And I think with Graham, like I said, from a conversational point of view, it was always fine. I'd go and see him. We'd all go and sit in his room before games and have a chat. And he'd go, right, get out, go and get changed. So what shook me up a little bit was, I remember we played against Yeading in the FA Cup at Loftus Road, because we couldn't play at Yeading's. It's when DJ Campbell and all those boys were there.
Yeah.
And I was in the tunnel, about to walk out the tunnel. Again, captain in the team, we're walking out. And he walks to the front, Graham, and he goes, what did he say? He said something along the lines of, we need to sort out your contract. Come and see me Monday morning. We need to sort out, we need to sort out your contract. That was it. I'll come and see you on Monday because, you need a new deal, basically. I'm thinking, amazing. New deal's coming, great. Then Monday came, nothing. Tuesday came, and I'm like, Gaffer, you want to talk to me about something? He's like, oh, yeah, no, forget about it. So then I'm like, what's going on here? There was just like little things like that was happening. Then there was rumours, Andy Faye's coming to the football club. He wants to bring Scott Parker to the football club. And there was all these things where I was just like, you're not communicating with me anymore.
Right.
1 minute I'm captain, next minute I'm this. And I didn't all of a sudden knew where I stood.
Yeah.
And I could feel in a weird way, like he'd shipped Craig Bellamy off to Celtic. He'd got rid of Laurent Robert. And I was just like, what's happening to our team? There were things happening that I just wasn't convinced by.
I feel you.
And then I think people saw that, and there was rumours of either Tottenham and Arsenal at the time, and I was just like, if I want to go to a World Cup, I'm not sure this is the place where I'm going to play my best football next year.
Yeah. So because you touched on the Sunderland Newcastle derby, tell me what's it like, Arsenal Tottenham. tell me what it's like.
Wild.
For that. Yeah, God.
Wild. I mean, the difference is, like, the time we're derby, like, the city is what it is. So you feel it every minute of every day building up to that game. Because there's only black and white once you cross that time we're bridge. That's it. It's all Newcastle fans. So you go to the shop, better win that game at the weekend. You get in a taxi, don't think about losing that game. Like, you're getting told every minute of every day about that game. But again, we were like third in the Prem. Sunderland were basically bottom. It was like, from a game perspective, the intensity's there and the rivalry's there and that fierce nature's there. But, we got the ball. We got the ball and we can step it up. The Tottenham-Arsenal one, it was kind of flipped a little bit. We were a very good team, but we're dealing with like Henry and these man. It was it was a different Fabregas, and it was a different game. But the intensity of it is wild. Once you get in the stadium, like, the hatred's a lot. Like, it's a lot. And if anything, when people ask me if I miss football, it's about the only thing I miss massively, is that North London derby fires me up every single time. Because when I left Newcastle, I thought I was going to Arsenal, if I'm honest with you. And that kind of didn't transpire. And I was like, look, I need to get out. And I ended up at Tottenham. And me and the Tottenham fans got off to a slow start because of that. Because in their minds, they were like, you wanted to go to Arsenal, and now you're here.
You did want to go Arsenal, though, right?
I did, yeah. I mean, Arsene Wenger was there. He was like, the Pep Guardiola of football at that time. If you wanted to go to Harvard and gain a better education, Arsene Wenger and Arsenal was where it sat as a young player.
I ain't mad at you, but I'll get you.
So, I got off to a bit of a slow start with Spurs fans. And like, then in my mind, I was like, well, this is the game then. This is the game to win them over. And so, don't get me wrong, we didn't win many, but I knew that scoring goals, playing well in those games meant a lot to those fans. And I loved every single minute of every derby that I played.
How good was that Arsenal that team at the time?
They were good, but they were dwindling because people were leaving. Like, there's no Vieira there anymore. I think Thierry's looking elsewhere at that particular time. And remember, like, in our first year, it went down to that last game really at West Ham when we got food poisoning. So we were a good team. Me, Carrick, Davids in midfield. We got Defoe, Robbie Keane, Ledley King. Like, we're a good team. Lennon on the right. So, and we finished fifth. But really, and we had the chance, if we win that game at West Ham, we pipped them. So they were tight games the time. But yeah, they were dwindling, is what I would say. But you could sense actually, if we catch them on a day, we can beat them. Do you know what I mean? It weren't like the Sunderland Newcastle situation. But yeah, like the fans. Yeah, they make it wild. I'm even like, I actually prefer playing in it than watching it. I hate watching it now because I know what it means to the area. I can't go out the house. Do you know what I mean? Like, Whereas playing in it was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
All right, to be fair, you touched on it saying you got a good team. So you had the likes of, you played in your midfield with like Modric, Van der Vaart, Davids, Carrick, you know. Who first did you enjoy playing with? And then was Modric, or who impressed you? Don't let me put words into your mouth.
No, yeah. I mean, to play with, you know, people like Palacios and Sandro, the guys that want to do the horrible stuff. They were the ones.
Yeah,
but then there was always, you know, there was even people like Timu Tainio and Steed Malbronk. You know, one of the most underrated players I played with was Steed. Kara was, you know, Michael Carrick, I've always said he's the most underrated player I've ever played with. Okay. And the thing about Carrick that I love playing with, he was just like a get out of my space type player. He wanted that space in front of the back four, and I wanted to make runs in behind.
Yeah.
So I could kind of go and do what I wanted to do, and he would kind of make sure when we had the ball, it was being controlled. So, you know, I love playing with Kara. You know, from that point of view, I think I love playing with people like Palacios because it was, you just do all the horrible stuff. Because when you played with someone like Luka, you then had to kind of play that deeper role, give him the freedom, because he was clearly a ridiculous talent.
Yeah.
He was kind of one of the first midfielders I looked at and was like, yeah, you're playing a different game.
Okay.
You're playing...
What was it about him?
The way I say it is like, I think in England, through my era as a midfielder, you were taught in straight lines. And that's where this term box-to-box always came from. Oh, you're a box-to-box midfield player. Right. You get it off the back four, you're there, and you make runs forward, and you get back. You know, they're all straight lines.
Yeah.
Luka didn't play in straight lines. Luka played like this. You know, he went where he wanted to glide and flow. He'd again drift into a right back position, and you'd think, where's he going? And then he would dribble, play a 1-2, little step over, and before you know it, he's on the edge of the 18-yard box trying to do stuff, and you were like, oh, right, he's been taught differently. And I think that's where the coaching in England has improved over the years, because now you see certain players, you know, doing those types of things. Whereas when I was playing, it was literally straight lines, box to box, and Luka was he was thinking outside the lines. He was a lot stronger than people gave him credit for. He had a tiny little body up top. He had calves like this and quads like that. He was so balanced on both sides.
Solid,
you know, and I to this day say he's the best player I played with at Tottenham. You know, and we had people like Bale there and Rafa and that, but Bale was just a physical specimen that did crazy things and special things for the fans. But in terms of like intelligence on a football pitch and what he was able to do, Luka was, you know, for me the best.
You touched on Bale. Did you know that you had a superstar from Bale? So you know you was a specimen. Did you be like, oh, this brother's going places? Like you see, because you're a midfielder with Modric. Yeah. So you was like, I can see. Was that the same with Bale?
Yeah, once he got his chance, definitely. Once he got his chance, I think with Gareth there was an element like, in his early years as a kid, did he have the mentality? In terms of, like he took a few beatings, Gaz. Took a few beatings that people don't really see. Like Harry was quite harsh on him. You know, Gaz used to have long hair and he'd play with this clip in his hair and he'd be like, get that clip out your ear. And it was just all, and you have to remember he had that tag where he'd lost, I think, you know, I don't know, like maybe 15 of his first Premier League like games that he'd play. He had this weird tag, or he didn't win or whatever it was. But I do remember there was this one game we played, I think, in the Cup at Man United, and he gave Wes Brown a horrible time. A horrible time. Like, he ran him to the point where I was looking at Wes like, boy,
you're feeling sorry for him.
You are feeling it, you know what I mean? And then then we had a game at Fulham where he scored these couple of goals, and he was doing things where, like, the goal at Fulham always stood out in my mind because he's gone down the left-hand side, and I'm looking in the middle, and you've got Berbatov and Keane. And I'm like, oh, square it. One of the big boys is there. Tap in. Nah. He was like, this is mine. Slot it near post. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, you're starting to realise you're the man. Yeah. And he just kind of just kept, you know, elevating and believing in himself. And then Harry, you know, as a midfield player, Harry just used to scream at you. Whoever was on form, he used to scream at you, give it to Lennon, give it to Bale. And you were like, all right, I know what I'm doing. But like, that's all he used to scream at you for 90 minutes. But then it was just like, give it to Bale, give it to Bale, give it to... And then just go, there you go. He'd be on his knees at times. He'd literally be on his hands and knees like, no. And I'd be like, you told me to give it to you. You better keep going. If you're going to rinse everything out of you. And he was just a beast of a player like that. Nobody could live with at that time. And then, you know, he went from left back to left wing, and then just basically came in one day and just went, I'm a striker. He just went, I'm a striker. That's it. I want to wear a striker's number. I think they gave him the number 11. He said, I want to score goals. you know, yes, I can play on that left-hand side, but I can also score 20 goals a season if you want me to, and that's what I'm going to do. And I think it was under like AVB, I think, that year where he just rocketed free kicks, goals. He was like, I'm a forward now.
You got back to the Champions League with Spurs.
Yeah.
So now you're grown, stature, mentality. You played against what do you remember playing against? Milan, Real Madrid. So that's Ronaldo, Ozil, you know. So now you've grown, you take it in. What was that feel like?
Well, again, now the parameters of what's expected are tightened. Right. And not only are they tightened, but I'm now one of the only players playing in this team that's actually experienced life in the Champions League. Okay. So you're kind of being looked at as like, well, you've been here, you know what to expect, you know the complexities of what's coming here. So you need to help and guide. And, you know, the first game, I think, was Inter Milan away. And weirdly, that season for me, I remember we had pre-season away. It might have been South Africa or something. I played every single game in pre-season. And first game of the season, I think, was against Man City at home. And Harry just put me in the stand out of nowhere. I was like, I've played, you know what pre-season's like? You do a little game, you rest. He played me 90 minutes in every game, and the pitches were like concrete out there. And I was like...
What, and then benched you for the first game?
Didn't even bench me. I was in the stand. Oh. So I just went, okay, cool. I was like, I'm not training with you. I'm going to go and train with Tim and Les Sherwood. Tim Sherwood and Les Ferdinand. Because Tim and Les had that young kind of like Harry Kane, Andros Townsend, Ryan Mason, Stephen Colker team. And as young coaches, they were quite brutal in terms of like how they spoke to even the first team, how they spoke, what they demanded from the youngsters. They ran the life out of them. And I used to watch from afar and think their sessions looked good.
Right.
And I think we had, because I was in the stands, I had them to train the next day, and I trained with them, and I enjoyed it so much that I was like, I'm staying with you lot. And he was like, well, we've got a game against QPR on like Tuesday or Wednesday, and this was before the second Premier League game of the season. And I said, yeah, I'll play. I feel good, I'm fit, I want to play, and I'm loving your training. So I trained, the game was like on the Wednesday, and we battered this QPR team. And like, I think Neil Warnock came up to me like after the game, and he was like, what are you doing, son? Like, you available? And I was like, no, I'm not available. But thanks. And Harry was at the game, and basically he put me in the squad to then travel to Stoke. And, you know, before I know it, I'm starting. So I've gone from like the stands or like to starting against Stoke. And it was that game, remember when Bale hit that volley? Top
bad
corner.
Boy finish,
and then on the Wednesday, we got Inter Milan away, and I'm starting in that. So kind of got myself back into the team. And I mean, we're like 4-0 down. We're 4-0 down. We walk into the dressing room, and Harry just looks at us like, what are you going to do? And we didn't know, to be honest with you. You know, it's our first game. Everyone's kind of taking stock. What I did like about that team, no one was giving in. It was like, we're gonna go out and face this type thing. But we just happened to be very fortunate that we had an absolute superstar in our team, that we knew we had a good player, but it was the night Gareth Bale was born, basically. And my job was like, just give him the ball. I always run joke with him that like, I gave him 3 assists in that game. But the reality is I made a tackle on the edge of my own 18-yard box, passed it to Gaz, and he ran the whole length of the pitch and scored. And I think I fed him another one. And in the second one, I always laugh when I see the clip because I'm right there. I think it's, who's the player? Coutinho was there. So Coutinho's tracking me into the 18-yard box. I'm thinking, Gaz, square it. And he just went bang, bottom corner. And then the third one, they kick off. It's right at the end of the game, and I'm hounding, chasing the ball down, and I win it. And then Lennon goes through, squares it, and Gaz scores. But even though we lost, we walked into the dressing room and was like, oh, yeah, we can do this type thing. This Champions League is not as much of a step up to us as a team as we thought it was going to be. And it was kind of the wake-up call that I think we needed.
Yeah, so you know when you have a good game or a player's done good in the change room, you come back.
Yeah.
What was Bell like after that? Like, was there a glow? Like, did he walk in and was just like, talk to me differently?
No, you know what? No. If I'm honest with you, Gaz didn't really... You never saw that with Gaz too much. Every now and again, he'd give you a little bit of did you see what I did to him type thing? But it was like a private thing. He would never come in the dressing room and be like, any chance, lads? You know what I mean? Like, I've just gone and scored a hat-trick. he came in with the mentality is we've lost the game.
Okay.
He just came in like head down. I mean, he had the ball under his arm. Do you know what I mean? So that said enough. It was like, came in, ball by him. Didn't really say much. And then when we got on the coach, I feel the lads were like, do you realise what you've just done?
What you just did?
Because he's apparently the best right back in the world. And you've absolutely just destroyed his whole career in 1 second.
Yeah.
And also on top of that, given us the belief that when they come to White Hart Lane, they're cooked.
Yeah.
They've got no chance. And that's exactly what happened. We just rode the Gareth Bale train for as long as we possibly could. And then it ended in Madrid when I think Ramos managed to wind Crouchy up a little bit too much and he got sent off. But we'd reached our level, I think, at that point.
Okay,
we'd reached our level. You get to the Bernabeu and, like Ozil, Xabi Alonso, Di Maria, Ronaldo, Marcelo, Sergio Ramos, and you kind of like, you feel the weights of everything if you're not 100% prepped. And we probably wasn't prepped well enough for that particular game to go and do what we needed to do. And yeah, we just fell short.
So let's talk about the Premier League now. So now, like you're talking about, you're older now, more experienced champ. At that point, what midfielders? Vieira was earlier at the time. So now, what midfielders stood out at that time? So you're like, all right, cool. I'm kind of at the peak of my powers.
Yeah, I mean the game changed then. It went to like a 3 in midfield system. Whenever you was playing against Chelsea, for example, you was dealing with like Lampard on your shoulder. Makelele was deep. Essien was a beast in there, and you're like, that was probably one of the hardest midfields you had to deal with at that particular time, because for me in particular, like I want to make runs, and I've just got Claude going, come on then, I'm waiting for you. So you couldn't make your runs, and then I was constantly having to almost sacrifice my game to make sure Lamps didn't score, because he's just, the Drogba knockdown's coming at some point. So you've got to be more alert to that. So you kind of had to sacrifice a lot of what you wanted to do. And then they had, what a player in Essien in midfield. That was easily probably the most difficult midfield you came up against. I think at United, Carrick had then moved on to go to United. Scholesy was playing a different role there, where he was a little bit deeper in hitting, diags and stuff like that. Kind of going through the teams here. Oh, what else did you have? Liverpool. I mean, Alonso's at Liverpool. Mascherano's there. Gerrard. That was always a tough game as well. So, those teams in the kind of like upper echelons of the Premier League were always very difficult. But then you still had to deal with like a Gareth Barry at Villa, or these good. Even like Kevin Nolan at Bolton was, almost like a poor man's Lampard. I hate to say it, but he could score a goal. He was on your shoulder all the time. He was a good player and hard to deal with. So the Premier League was just testing you week in, week out. But those players and those teams, that's when you felt the game shift from this kind of like me and you looking into each other's eyes to now actually this is a real tactical game that you got, like chess game, you got to figure out.
So we got to talk about the 2008 League Cup final up against Chelsea. What's your memories of that game?
The actual game was okay. I remember we played well. I remember it was a brand new Wembley pitch and it was heavy. Like it was one of those ones where you plant the foot and the turf goes. But it was more to do with that run we had. So we had enough players in our team who hadn't won anything, that were just desperate to win anything. You've had Robbie Keane, who's gone to like Inter Milan and, gone to Leeds and got to a Champions League semi-final and come close in cups, and he's like getting to that age now where he's like, is it going to happen?
Yeah.
People like Jonathan Woodgate, Ledley King has been at the club for years. And, we had Berbatov, who, I mean, when Berber was at Bayer Leverkusen, I think in 1 year he lost the Champions League final to Real Madrid. He lost the league on the last game of the season. And I think he lost the cup all in one season.
Ooh.
So he was like, starving.
Yeah, man, I need something.
Yeah. And I was saying, we all had this energy. And we went to City quarter-final of the League Cup. Went down to 10 men. Berbatov puts in probably one of the best performances I've ever seen to this day. Beat them. Then it was Arsenal over 2 legs. And we go to the Emirates. I scored the first goal. I think Theo scores for them, 1-1. But we kind of were like, oh, good result. Take that home. Because away goals counted in that competition at that time as well. So we get back to White Hart Lane, and it was the game where we just absolutely blew them away, 5-1. Do you know what I mean? And I was definitely probably at the peak of my part. I was in a Tottenham shirt at that particular time. I was as fit as I'd ever been. I had a manager that understood me in Juan Ramos, and gave me a lot of responsibility. I was on free kicks. Had the ability just to run forward, knowing that I had security behind me. So going into that final, I felt a little bit different. It was the first time I played against Chelsea, or we weren't having to worry about Lamps or anybody else. I wasn't having to sacrifice my game. I could impose my game. But the game was, pretty stale in a weird way. They go 1-0 up, which obviously ain't great, but also I remember coming in at half time and Juan Ramos is just like, calm down. We had a manager finally that had won trophies. He'd won the Europa League on numerous occasions with Sevilla. And he split the games, like the semi-final in particular, into quarters, because it was over 2 legs. And he had this way about him. Like even before the final against Chelsea, we all get on a coach thinking we're going to go to this hotel and train. And we turned up and there's like quad bikes and these buggies and stuff. And we're like, what are you doing? He's like, go and enjoy yourselves. You don't need to think about the game. Right. Then we're on these like bikes and flying around this field. And then he put on a casino that night. Like there's some fake casino for us to all enjoy. We literally didn't train the day before.
Wow. And
I was like, what's going on? And he just said, I spoke to him afterwards and he just said, you'd have overthought it too much. It's all brand new for you. And he came in at half time and he just had this calm about him that made us believe we were going to win it. It's hard to explain what it was, but he just sent us out there with so much belief. And once we got that first goal, it was like, it's only going one way, this game. So, I mean, you've seen what's happened with Spurs, since then. They've only just won the second trophy post that, which shows, the amount of players that have been through that club at that particular time. It just shows how valuable kind of that moment was.
I was going to get you on like last season and say they haven't won anything yet, but they've won something now. So
no, thankfully they've won something. I ain't got to deal with all that rubbish of people saying, well, it's Tottenham. Do you know what I mean?
All right, listen, I want to go on to England now because I think most people say that's the pinnacle. That's one of that. I think you made your debut with Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, Rooney,
So what can you remember about, that whole...
Yeah, again, you are, it was weird. Wazza was like 17, I think. I was 19. I mean, even getting picked, I remember being sat at breakfast with like Woody and Kieran, and Woody's going, you're getting picked. And I'm like, shut up, Woody, I'm not getting picked. Do you know what I mean? Like, been in the 21s, it's not any event, you're getting picked. And then obviously transpires, I get picked. Training for me was always the one where I was like, whoa. Like, you think like Championship to Premier League and then Premier League to like European football. Training for England was like nothing you'd ever seen.
Cool.
Like,
tell me they've said, I've heard that.
Oh,
tell me your
was just
experience.
Like the pace of everything was so much quicker. Like in a blink of an eye, things would go by you. And there's like, sometimes training, you'll feel like gets into a rhythm. When you're doing like possession, it's like boom, 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 boom. It's popping around and you go into like a flow state of like bam, bam, bam. And in England, it was like da, 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 da. It was like that. It was just quick. And you also had like these ridiculously talented players. So after a game, shooting session would come on. I'm in the queue and it's like Gerrard's first, whip, top bin. Beckham next, top bin. Scholes, drill, bottom. And I'm like, you're actually nervous to shoot because you're like, these guys don't miss. They do not miss. And that's then the standard that's expected. And every single day, you have to remember in that England team, there was a level of like, there was like this undercurrent of we're Man United, we're Chelsea, we're Arsenal, like we stick together. So you got Stevie like going through people, Scholes smashing people. Like the standard every single day in training was like the highest level Premier League match that you're ever going to be involved in. And it's like what I used to really enjoy, right, was because I was on the fringes of the squad. There was like me, Michael Carrick, Owen Hargreaves were almost like the fringe midfield players around that time. And the press were always like, oh, why don't we get this midfielder in? Why don't we get that midfielder in? And I was just sit there and think, yeah, bring them. Because they don't know what they get themselves into. Like I've been around this since I was 19, and I kind of understand now like the pace of these sessions. But I saw many a midfielder come and be like, yeah, it's too much. So, getting close to people like Scholes in training, it was just like it's just the intelligence of them at that level and the speed is the only way I can really explain. And again, the standard of what's expected of you. day in, day out. You know, you are there to represent your country. It's not a joke, you know, and every single day in training that is, you know, reminded, whether it's you were heavily embarrassed in training because your team got beat up 3-0, or whether you individually embarrassed me. I'm going to bed that night thinking that can't happen tomorrow, you know, and I need to prepare every single day for this. So the standard was just always through the roof.
So on the mindset, what I want to ask you is how important, because all of you can ball. It's a given. Everybody at England can ball, or to be fair, everybody in the Premier League can ball. How different is, because technically you know you can do it.
Yeah.
But what was the mental side of it where, you know, it was consistent? So, you know, Stevie G was like, listen, bruv, 9 out of 9, I'm hitting the top bins.
Yeah.
You know, what was that, and how quick did your mindset have to kind of get to that, or did you see it? Because you saw them come in. And
They all did extra. They all did more than was required, is what I saw. So Bex, for example, after training, he might go and take 25 free kicks or 30, 40 free kicks from all different positions on the pitch. I remember one story when we was in South Africa, we were playing in Lucas Radavy's testimonial, and we'd finished training, and Bex has gone to the corner flag, Bex is taking free kicks, and I think Phil Neville was on the corner, and he was floating these balls to Scholesy on the edge of the 18-yard box. So the rhythm went like this. He'd float the ball, Scholesy'd run onto it, volley, goal. And then Bex would be stood there by the free kick, and David James is in goal, and Bex would be stood by a free kick. And I don't think he had a wall up, but whip, goal. And it was just like one after the other, and we all sat there watching it. And they used to do things where, like, that standard was that high that even if you wanted to join in, you just wouldn't.
Yeah.
You just were like, that's a different level. Like, that's these guys are doing different stuff. Do you know what I mean? So it was more when, like, watching, you know, it's always the things that you didn't see, I think, with those guys. You know, when you thought they're probably going back to their room, they were probably going to a gym or, you know, exercising. And then also on top of that, they're playing at football clubs that are competing at the highest level year in, year out. They are competing against each other to win Premier Leagues week in, week out. They're not kind of giving away their secrets in a weird way.
Yeah.
But you saw enough of, you know, watching Lampard grow into, you know, being one of England's best midfielders, and same with Stevie, and like you could see why they just, you know, were physically, mentally, technically better than everybody else.
So, you know, as players, we know that it's always different when you train with somebody, because you see it's not just 90 minutes. You don't just see him on a game day. You see out of that England team, who impressed you, like just one where you're like I see him down to the warm up, down to the way who impressed you out of that at your time?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, like, you know, things like, because there's two different sides to that. Like, there's like the professionalism element. Right. You know, like Gary Neville, for example.
Were you big on that?
Yeah, I think it feeds into everything.
Right.
If you're someone who's always late, then that's like a slip of your standards.
Yeah, that's me.
So
I'm not gonna lie to you. That's why I asked the question. I swear to you, that professionalism side of it.
Yeah, it's.
But that's why I didn't get to. I do think as you get older, you start to block that. Do you know what I mean? Well, that was me anyway.
Yeah, but I also was with certain pros. Like, if you was late at Newcastle, you had to deal with Shearer screaming at you, like seriously screaming at you. Like, it's the one thing he hated was being late, right? Oh. So he'd be screaming at you. Bobby Robson, if you think Shearer hated it, he really hated it, to the point where he charged you. It was £1,000 instant. No, it might have been more, like a £3,000 instant fine, and then like £1,000 a minute.
What?
It was something silly like that.
What?
Yeah, it was insane. What? Yeah, it was. It was like something crazy. I wasn't even
earning any of that, so they could.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. If you heard that number, you ain't been late, are you?
Oh, so that's how they were.
So that's how he set it up. Bobby just went like literally. It might have been £3. It might have been like £1,000 for when you're late, £500 a minute. But it was literally like the minimum I remember was £500 per every minute that you're late.
Was you late?
I mean, maybe once. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, you'd have to pay it. It goes in the kitty. But once that money left your account, you weren't late again.
You weren't late
so
again.
you kind of had again, it's like everything's like once you start leveling up, by the time you get to England, everybody's standards are what they are.
What they are, yeah.
But then there are people that drive the standards, people like Gary Neville and Rio and John Terry, and these are guys that drive the standards. So from that element, those were the guys. But then in training, when I first joined at 19, I'd say Scholesy. When Scholesy kind of left, Gerrard and Rooney were, again, very different ends of the spectrum, but like you couldn't help but be impressed. Wazza was just so free. We'd finish training and he wants to get the gloves on and go and goal and be plucking things out the top corner. And I'm like, mate, you're playing like in the quarterfinal of the World Cup next week, like tomorrow. Like, what are you doing? And you couldn't help but admire his freedom and the kind of like just balls he had on him to just take a country on his chest, really. But yeah, those guys, it's a shame that we sit here and kind of not talk about something that's better because we should have done. But we've all got ourselves to blame for that.
I feel you. So 2006, you was part of the World Cup.
Yeah.
Didn't play a minute. How frustrating?
Yeah, it was difficult. Yeah, I mean, the end of the season caught me out, really. It was that game where we didn't make it into the Champions League with Spurs, with the Lasagna Gate situation. I'd missed the last 3 games, I think, of the season with a stress fracture in my shin. And I'd had a really good season at Tottenham. And I think was speaking to kind of like the medical staff. And I was in a lot of pain. I was like, ice buckets every day. It was in a weird place in my shin. And they said, look, if you keep playing, it's going to crack, basically. And then you're going to have an actual fracture in your shin. And then you're definitely not going to the World Cup. And I was like, well, that's the risk I'm kind of prepared to take in a weird way, because obviously I need my fitness. Anyway, we came to a decision, having spoken to like the FA and so on and so forth. It was like, probably best you just try and rehab it. So that's what I did. I was in like these oxygen chambers trying to get, just fit as quick as I can. But in hindsight, I go to a World Cup and I'm half fit. And my fitness was kind of my superpower.
That's your superpower.
And that was kind of taken away from me. And, looking back on it, it's shown in training. I wasn't anywhere near the level I needed to be. But to be there and witness the pressure of what you go through as an England player at a World Cup was, it gives you a real ability to, sit and commentate and give my opinions on what the players are doing for England now. Because obviously, the world and his wife has an opinion now on footballers. And essentially, there's another layer that people don't see when you play for England at a major tournament. And I got to kind of, even though I wasn't playing, I got to see it and experience it and feel it. And it's, it's bigger than what people think.
You scored your first goal under Capello.
Yeah, is that
correct? What was it like playing? Because to be fair, you seem like you like structure, because he seemed real strict. How was it like playing for under him?
Yeah, it was great, because he just hated defenders. Anyone else, do what you want, but he literally would just drag defenders around in training. He'd be like, stand here, do this, do that. And so he hated defenders because he wanted clean sheets. And his other big thing was like fitness and diet and stuff. So he was one of the first England managers that we had that was like, no ketchup, no butter, no this, no that, and was doing body fat tests every 2 minutes. And with me, I had that at my club with Juan Ramos. So Juan used to we had like a red, amber and green system at Tottenham at that time. And if your body fat wasn't, within your composition of what it should be, you'd be in the red. If you was in the red, when training finished, you're running around the pitch for 2 hours doing fat burners. If you was in amber, you was on the fringes. If you was green, you was blessed. I mean, my body fat at the time was like 3%. So I was trying to put on weight. It was crazy. So
never ever had that problem.
So like, I had it at Spurs, and my manager at Spurs loved me because of it. And then I went to England, and Capello just instantly took to me.
Right.
He saw me, like, in his first game, I played just off Wayne Rooney. Rooney was up top, and I played just behind him. And I think Gareth Bale and Gerrard was in midfield. So he saw kind of what I saw in myself at that particular time. He puts me up front. I go and score a goal. I played really well in that game, and I'm thinking, this is it. Now, finally, I get to start my England career with a manager that likes me in a position that I want. I've scored a goal. Let's go. And our next game, so we went back to our clubs, but our next game was going to be against France away. So I was like, proper test. Another chance to show that you deserve the shirt now. And I had a bit of an ankle issue at the time, and Juan Ramos came to me. It was towards the end of the season. He basically said, look, we haven't got anything to play for at the minute. We've won the League Cup. I think it's when we won the League Cup, and so we're in Europe anyway. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. You need to look after yourself. So there was a couple of games we went into, and he was like, just rest your ankle. And I was like, and this was before an international game. And I said, all right, cool. As long as everything's okay, I'll rest it. Rested my ankle. Team gets announced. I'm not even in the squad for England. And I'm like, I said to the gaffer, I was like, did you not speak to Fabio and tell him I'm okay, that you're just resting me? And he's like, well, I thought he was going to pick you. And this is when Capello came out with this whole thing of, well, if you're not fit for your club, then you're not fit for your country.
Oh, shit.
And then went back on it at the 2010 World Cup. But at that point, like, again, my head's gone. I'm going, are you taking the piss? Like, I've just started for you, scored, played really well. And no one's even communicating with me to say, are you fit? Are you not fit? It was just, the feeling I got from my manager at Tottenham was that it's okay, go and focus on England now for the rest of the season. So that was it. Again, kind of like, what I felt like was going to be the start of an England career was, quickly the end.
Is there, it could be a dumb question, but could you have phoned up Capello and gone? Not
at that time. I didn't have
Can players do what I'm saying?
I think it's better now. I think you could do. Yeah, you probably could have done. But squad's been announced. Like, who's he going to kick out? And also, you got your pride. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what am I going to do? Ring up and beg to be in the squad? Like, I just should be in the squad at that time. So I was just, pissed off with that whole... It just felt like to me, this is just me in England again. Like, we've had this relationship where if an opportunity comes, it just doesn't quite go. But you've only got, like, yourself to blame for those things. But that just felt like one of those moments where... all right, this could have been handled better because I was actually fit. I was just being managed.
What kind of, are you not saying confrontational, but say when a situation transpires, are you somebody who would go knock the door, chat it out? So that's the kind of person you are?
Yeah, because I've always felt like I had the ability to... It wasn't arguments I was having.
You can articulate yourself.
I was articulating myself in a way where I needed to understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm not training well enough, if I'm going out too much, then say that to me.
Tell me,
and I'll adjust my life. But I wasn't knocking on the door constantly.
Right.
And I used to tell players not to do that because it just becomes annoying. I'd say there's a reason you're not playing. Just go and sort it out. But there always comes a point from a player where you just need to get down to the nuts of it. And especially when... you are, I think at that particular time at Tottenham, if there was a leadership group, it was me, Keano, Ledley King, and Woody. I was, part of the leaders in that team. So I felt more than comfortable to go and speak to, whether it was Daniel Levy or whether it was the managers at the time, I'd go and have a conversation with them.
So you touched on you was going to play up against France, but didn't get picked for that squad. But you did play against Brazil a couple of times. So the Ronaldinhos, the Kakas. What was that? That's that Brazilian.
Yeah, I mean, my last game for England was against Brazil in Doha. So it was obviously when yeah. You can see there Kaka. I was dealing with that.
I'm trying to see who's coming out on top. Who's winning that? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Let's just say I did win the ball. Let's just say that.
I'm gonna go. I'm backing you anyway, player, man.
But that. He played almost in the position that I played when I was for the first game under Capello. So he played just off. I think it was Luis Fabiano was up front for them, and he was dropping deep in midfield, and he's powerful and he's quick, and he was a nightmare to do. And we're playing in Doha, and it's hot.
It's hot.
Their midfield, I think Felipe Melo was playing in their midfield, and we just had all of a sudden everyone dropped out of the squad. Like, we had so many players that dropped out the squad, and I think I was in midfield with Gareth Barry. I think Milner was playing, and we it was a tough game. But those Brazil teams, just in general, you're not getting the ball. Put it that way. They're keeping the ball. They are a problem to play against. But I think the first game at Wembley was against Brazil as well, and Ronaldinho played in that one. And look, they weren't. These guys were coming to the end. It weren't like the 2002 Rivaldo, Ronaldinho, teams. It was they were good, obviously, but I think as we've seen at major tournaments, they've been lacking for a few years, really.
Yeah. All right. So on your international, who were the two players that just stood out?
2006 World Cup, Luis Figo was pretty special.
Yeah.
And probably Xavi. Again, I'm quite young in that picture, and that's at the Bernabeu. And I came on in that game I remember watching Xavi, right, when he played for Spain under 21s at Peterborough. And I just went to the game because I'd heard about this guy. Like, I was obsessed with football as a kid. A friend of mine had played against him in the youth teams coming through. And they was like, you need to see this guy. He's special. And I went down to Peterborough to watch him in under 21s. And I was not disappointed. And, you're kind of like, there's a few guys you come up against at that under 21 level, like him, Piero, and they.
Shit, that was your age group then.
Well, no, they were older than me, but because I was playing for under 21s when I was like 17.
I forget.
So, but they were just a different beast altogether. They were very well rounded and European footballers already and playing at the top level. And Xavi was just. It's a player he just couldn't get near. I don't know what he does. When I spoke to you before about that 1-touch, 2-touch thing, he was the master of it. You'd literally go and close him down and go bang, pop it off, go and close him down, and he'd just do it all day. And then the level of patience that they have in Europe, we don't have it in England. You get the ball in midfield and pass that back 3, 4, 5 times, the fans are going mad at you. The fans go, get the ball, turn, do something, like run with it. In Europe, they don't think like that. In Europe, they're like, yeah, just keep it. And then eventually you go, well, I'm not going to close you again. Then he turns and he's like, no, right, now I've got you. But a lot of that is to do with the environment of football that they play in comparison to what we play in England. We play rush football. And they don't.
Let me ask, just off of that, and this is a side thought, would you have gone to play abroad?
I would have loved to. But, in our era, like English players really, it was very rare. I think there was a big premium on the price for us to go across to Europe. There was a couple of times things were close and nearly went to Fiorentina at one point. There were some rumours around Inter Milan doing a swap with Suleimantari, which I don't know whether it was going to happen. But the chairman basically called me into the office and he said, look, I've not heard any, because it was all over Sky Sports. They were like, they want to do a swap deal. And I was, again, like, I'm knocking on doors now because I'm like, if this is an opportunity for me, I want to go.
I want to, yeah.
And Daniel just said, look, I've not heard anything, so just try and keep your head on your shoulders, basically. And that's what I did. But yeah, I think all of us around that era would have probably loved to go and had that experience. And also, I think my game probably would have suited European football a little bit more as well. But, this is all in hindsight. But yeah, I'd have loved to.
All right, so to round things off, and we touched on it earlier in regards to injuries. How much did the injuries affect you at your time at like QPR, Villa and Forest? So talk to me about that bit.
Yeah, I mean, Villa, I'd ruptured my Achilles and that one really hurt because Martin O'Neill was trying to get me to go to Villa for years. And at that particular time, Villa were like, in my opinion, the team that was challenging Tottenham to try and get in Champions League. But I felt like we were better, and we were. And so I never went. But then when the opportunity eventually happened, I underestimated Villa in a big way. I think I underestimated kind of how big they were as a club, how amazing their fan base is, and just what a fantastic football club it is to play for, in terms of just little things where the attention to your family was a lot better. And because it's got that town environment about it, once you come out of London, you feel that weird football energy again.
I feel you.
And obviously I ruptured my Achilles there. So that was done by December.
How old are you at this time?
I think I'm about 28, 29, something like that. But it was my time to now go, right, okay, Spurs, you've gone your way, that's fine. They've brought in Scott Parker now. I'm going to a club that wants me, loves me, and I can feed off that energy as well. And yeah, once it had ruptured, it was just like, oh, this is a nightmare or whatever. Go back to Spurs after the rehab's fine. And again, spoke to Daniel Levy, and Daniel's like, look, Forest want to take you. We're going to consume most of the wages, but it's a chance for you to go home, get fit or whatever. And I loved it. It was like almost an opportunity to say goodbye to the club that I still love to this day. And weirdly, the first goal I scored for Forest was against Barnsley, and my last goal I scored was against Barnsley. So there's all this and actually my last game of football I ever played was against Forest. There's all these crazy synchronicities around my career. It's all surrounding Forest. But then once I left there, I was like, right, let's try and get back to the Premier League. And I was at a stage in my career, I've got a young family. didn't really want to leave London. Harry's gone to QPR, and it was an opportunity for me to go and just stay in London and go and play football. And I wouldn't say it was an experience I enjoyed. There were some ups and downs in terms of being at that football club. But again, I was probably crippled with anxiety at that particular time, if I'm honest with myself.
Okay.
I think the embarrassment of going out on a football pitch and continually getting injured just consumes you eventually. You can train. I kind of saw a little bit of it with like Vincent Kompany at one point at City, where, and I know I had it, and I can't speak on behalf of Vincent obviously, but I know that I would train day in, day out and be fine. And then as I got closer to like Thursday, Friday, the anxiety of like going out in front of fans and potentially breaking down again, I don't know whether it tightens you up or whatever it may do, but there was something where my mind had just lost that strength and that ability to cope with the doubt of my body surviving. And so I then started going onto a football pitch only thinking about, is your body going to survive?
Yeah.
Not go and enjoy yourself. You're like, be a kid again, play football. So yeah, when my career came to an end, it was like sad, but probably a tinge of relief in there as well. That I didn't have to suffer that kind of like anxiety of, am I going to be able to just survive 90 minutes again was
Just tell me, because what relates, but I guess mine was the total opposite, especially towards towards the latter stages. I was kind of constantly injured, so I played that way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so there was it was, I'm injured. So the way I ran was injured, so I kept on getting asked, are you okay?
Yeah.
But I was so okay.
You played in that.
That I played with it. So when I hear that, I get it.
Yeah.
But I shifted my mind to be like, you're injured anyway.
Yeah,
so,
precisely, yeah.
In regards, so it's...
I think it's just like the types of players you are as well, though. If you think about it, like, if I'm your manager and I know you're 60% fit, I know you can still do what I need you to do.
Yeah.
Because I know that ball's coming into you and you're doing what I need you to do.
Yeah.
I know from set pieces, they're fuming that you're on the pitch.
Yeah.
I know, like, once that board goes up, you know what it's like, and you see Akinfenwa, they're going,
yeah.
oh, for fuck's sake, I got to deal with him. Whereas with me, even at 30, 31, people are looking at me, managers are looking at me as box to box.
Right.
You're box to box.
Yeah.
Whereas I probably at that particular time in my career, I was too proud to think that I wasn't box to box. I should have just gone, listen, this is not your game anymore.
Yeah.
You sit in front of that back four and you now dictate games. You need to change your game to survive. Every footballer that's ever lived, that's played a long career, look at James Milner, played left back, played right back, plays midfield, plays holding, plays, like if you can adapt, you survive. And I just didn't have, I don't think I was probably too proud to kind of go, I can't go box to box anymore. It was like, you know what? Looking back, if I'd have just had a real conversation with Harry at that particular time and said, listen, I can't do that anymore. But if you want to utilize me here, this is what I can do for you, then I probably would have, I think probably survived a lot longer. But sprinting box to box when you've got a ruptured Achilles and this, that, and the other, it's a silly move.
So did you, so I want to know for you, when you did the Achilles, when you ruptured it, that mindset, was it, okay, I need to get back to what I was?
100%, yeah. Like, if I'm honest, I was playing, like you said, like all footballers play injured basically the whole career. I had tendinitis in my Achilles, I'm popping anti-inflams, I'm in ice buckets after training, but I'm like, I just want to go and play. But I was in pain for like 3 years with it, getting out of bed, having to hobble to bathroom and stuff like that. But I'm playing Premier League football, so I'm happy. So when I ruptured it, again, there was a bit of like, right, I'm now not in pain. I've just got to rehab it properly. But the problem with operations is every time the surgeon cuts you, you lose 10% of what you were. A bit of spring, a bit of explosiveness. You just lose 10% of what you were as a player. So, my mindset 100% when I went back to Spurs was, I'm going to prove everybody like wrong. I need to get back on it. And I put my heart and soul into the rehab. And, Andres Villas-Boas, played me in some pre-season games and so on. But I was, even when you rupture an Achilles, you get back fit within 9 months, right? And I see it now in players. You get back on the pitch and you're playing, but you ain't back until the next 9 months.
Until the next 9 months,
You're nowhere near back. And that's, I just didn't have the time at Tottenham at that particular time to prove anything. So, I had to move on.
So in that QPR, I think 2012-13,
Yeah.
that relegation, we had what we heard from teammates how much carnage was going on in that
Yeah, it's
dressing
mad.
room. What can you remember of that?
I just remember just people just not bothered.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of like money talk,
Okay.
which was, I'd never heard it before. All of a sudden people talking about like what wages are on and stuff like that. And it was just like, what we here for, you know? Because when I joined in January, I just looked at the list of names, do you know what I mean? And I was like, how is this team where they are? And you know what? You had some unbelievable pros in that team. You know, people like Sean Derry and like Clint Hill, Jamie Mackey. Like these boys had been at QPR, like, or at least played in the lower levels.
Right.
But their kind of heart and soul was in it. And they were like working with a group of people who were there really because it's London and they've got a big pay packet. And if we go down, I'll go and play for whoever. Do you know what I mean? Roma or whatever. But that's the disparity in the dressing room was the problem. And, you know, as much as those older pros, and to be fair to people like Clint and Sean, they never back down from anyone. You know, I watched them take on whoever it may be, whether it was Julio Cesar, whether it was Stephen Mbia or Loic Remy. They still had it out with these boys because they loved and appreciated the fact that they were in the Premier League. But they was just, you know, the only way I can put it is just they were pissing against the wind. They had no chance whatsoever. And I realised that pretty quick as well. Great lads, by the way. You know, the people I've mentioned, Julio Cesar, love him to bits. You know, Loic Remy, what a guy. And Mbia, all these guys, Ji-Sung Park, loveliest guy. But we were all just individuals. And I include myself in that, by the way. Like, I wasn't like the model pro that was trying to bring everybody together. You just fall into this rhythm where you're like, every now and again we'll have a good game because we've got good players. But the reality is you can't do that in the Premier League. You need to be a collective.
Do you know the reason why? Because again, product of the EFL, and you know when you cash people off and that. But all the names, they're used to having money. Do you know what I'm saying? So everywhere you've gone, like you said, it was the first time that you've had that, and you've been at the likes of all of them. You know, Newcastle, Tottenham. You've been at Villa. You've been at that QPR. What was it about the money talk?
I don't think they were showing off. I think they were just in shock about what they were getting paid. Do you know what I mean? I think it was more that. I think it was like, can you believe he's giving me this contract? I'm on 200 grand a week. What are they thinking? I think it was more like that type stuff. Because like I said, these guys were like cool guys. I think it was recorded. Like Julio was on a massive deal. Julio Cesar, but top guy, top player. By the way, in a possession in training, unbelievable ball player, right? Would be a top keeper in today's game. He was when he played, obviously. So Julio was not a show off. He didn't drive a flash car. It wasn't that. But you just heard. That was the feeling you just got around the place. And then also like last game of the season, you know, we get relegated against Reading. There's just no emotion.
There was none.
Yeah. People are just like, oh, we're doing later. And I'm like, this is mad. Like, what is going on here? So, but everybody knew that if they went down, they're moving on. That was kind of the deal because it benefited the club to get them off the wage bill anyway. So it was just, it wasn't a very good environment or fair on those QPR fans at that particular time.
Yeah, I hear that. All right, so you was one of the few players we played with, Tarat. Adel Tarat, both Spurs and QPR.
Yeah.
He is the definition of the streets will never forget.
Yeah,
you gotta say, how special was he?
At Spurs, I literally just fought with Zidane.
Yeah.
That's how good he was. I mean, I remember his first session. All we did when we came back in the changing room, I think it was like me, Ledley, Keno, Azza, we all just kind of like congregated and was like, have you seen this kid? Like I've never seen anything like that.
Different, yeah.
So the thing with Adele that people underestimated was like, as skillful as he was, you could not get the ball off him.
Right.
He had legs like this, an arse that was like that. He was powerful, he was strong. So he would embarrass you. So then he just got to a point, even at a young age, where you just won't go near him. Because you just thought he's just going to take the piss. So when you get to that level, you remember when Rooney used to get the ball and he used to just walk with it and look at people. It's not because nobody wants to tackle him. You just don't want to get embarrassed or you know that he's going to go by you. And he had that at that age. I think, Adele, looking back on his own career, will have his own opinions of it. And he might have loved it. He ended up going to AC Milan at one point under Seedorf and had a decent experience there. But with that ability,
right.
I mean, he should have been, one of the best. That's how good he was. But as I've spoken about briefly at times in this podcast, your talent as a footballer is, 40% of the job. You know what I mean? Like, if you haven't got that mentality, if you're turning up late, team's not having it, and you won't get where you need to get to. And unfortunately for Adele, and if he was here, I'd tell him to his face as well, and he'd probably admit it. He'd say, yeah, but I had a good time. That's what he'd probably say. He'd be like, Jay, I had a good time. I enjoyed it. But he didn't have that mentality that you need with his ability to be a Zidane and to be at the level he probably should have been.
So you retired at 32.
Yeah.
And that's for injuries, right? I mean, so what's your feelings? What's your feelings at that point?
Yeah, I was devastated.
But,
I think for any footballer that retires at any kind of, when you think about it, it's not loads that get to sail off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Think about this the other day, even like players like Messi and Ronaldo, one of the greatest players to ever played the game, haven't had the opportunity to kind of be like, my last kick of the ball was at Real Madrid. I mean, they could have done. Or, my last kick of the ball was at Barcelona and I've lifted a trophy and the fans have, not many get to do that.
Yeah.
So mine was so abrupt that it had its pros and cons. There wasn't like that whole, maybe I could do one more.
Okay.
Or am I making the right decision? It was just taken out of my hands. It was like, you physically can't do this anymore. And then because I also had that element with the injuries and probably the anxiety that went with it, there was a bit of relief as well. I just didn't know what I was going to do. That was the scary thing. It was like, I'm 32 and all I know is playing football. So what am I going to do? And Chris Ramsey was a coach at QPR at the time, and Chris Ramsey kind of brought through Tim Sherwood and Les Ferdinand and a bunch of other coaches as well. And he said to me, go and get your boots on and come out with me on the pitch. And I said, Chris, I couldn't think of anything worse to do right now. I'm going home.
Yeah.
And I just needed some time. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I did. I had my operation on my knee, went and watched the World Cup in Brazil on a hospital bed in my living room. And just took stock really as to kind of what it is I wanted to do with my life, and I suppose just sat still long enough to allow some thoughts to come my way as to the next move I was going to make.
You know what? I know I could probably sit down here and chat to you for time, but to be fair, like the Beast Mode On podcast family, they kind of asked this question for us to ask: if you could relive one game, if you could relive one game that just comes to your head now, what would the game be?
It would probably be the Arsenal Spurs 4-4 game.
Big boy game, to be fair. I remember it.
I've never. I mean, these games come like around once in a blue moon, and it was just, the element of it was a derby.
Yeah.
It was a nighttime kickoff. It was on Sky Sports. I was captain for the day. And I think we were like 4-1 down. Bentley scored that goal from the halfway line.
That.
The game's so pressurised. And, all of a sudden, like at the Emirates can happen, bang, 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 goal, Nasri, this one, Van Persie, bomb, and you're like, it's happening again.
Yeah.
And then we just got a little kind of like, just a little glimpse, I think like, maybe they're not over the line type thing. Do you know what I mean? And we just rode that wave, and it was just, scoring the goal. I think I scored the third one. I think Bent scored the second. I scored the third, and it was like, let's test them again. And then, when Azza scores that fourth goal, we didn't even win the game. And it's like, to this day, it feels like we won the game. And to have led the team to that moment, and also when you've retired, it's probably the thing that people stop me about on the streets most is like, your goals against Arsenal, thank you so much. And that game, oh my God, I remember where I was that game. And I think, those are the things that you really kind of like cherish after your career. It's just the moments you've been able to give fans in their life. And that game, if I could relive that whole day again, that would be it, definitely.
So I'm going to ask you a question. This is just for me.
Yeah.
You captained every club you played for.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What one for you was that you look back now and just like, yeah, man, I felt 10 feet tall being the captain of which club?
Probably Forest.
Dope.
It's my home. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're my people.
Yeah.
And I was a ball boy at Forest when Stuart Pearce was playing against Bayern Munich in Europe. And I ball boyed at Forest for years watching Stan Collymore and Brian Roy and Scott Gemmell and Steve Chettle and all these guys. And, you know, when it's your football club and it's your people and you're walking out with that armband on, leading, I don't think there's anything more special.
Yeah.
I loved, obviously, every moment. You know, when I had it at Newcastle, it was, you know, Shearer's injured, you're the vice captain for this period of time. Same at Spurs, you know, Ledley was injured a lot, so if Keno wasn't fit, I was captain during a period of time. And, you know, Wandy Ramos made me captain one year when Keno left, because he said, his words he said to me, he said, look, the youngsters look up to you and the elders respect you. That's how you kind of handle the dressing room, and that's why I want you to lead. And I said, perfect. Like that pretty much epitomized what I was kind of, you know, during my time at Tottenham in particular. But there's no doubt when I look back, even for that one game, like wearing the armband for Forest was something I'll never forget.
You know, the manager, you summed it up, because I was going to ask, I was like, what was the characteristics that all the managers see in you in regards to make you captain? But that's what it is, the young brothers. Yeah,
it's that, I think sometimes, you know, I watched a lot of youngsters at Tottenham in particular. I felt like I was at a really good age to help guide a few of them. We had Jake Livermore was there. I mean, Harry Kane was there. I'll be honest with you, I didn't need to speak to Harry much. He had the mentality from day one. Right. Ryan Mason, I spoke to Ryan Mason quite a lot. Andros Townsend, you know, I was always trying to be helpful to these youngsters because I knew they had ability, but it was always kind of like, you know, how do I help them get to that level they want to get to? I was never one that was worried about my position. I was just like, do they need to go out on loan? Do they need to work a little bit harder? Are they doing too much of this or too much of that? So I'd always try and talk to them and hopefully be a person that they could come to and lean on as well. Like Danny Rose, he was a youngster coming through, and Danny would say like, Jay, I'm missing home. And I'd be like, okay, I'll go and speak to the gaffer for you. And
yeah.
I'd be like, Danny needs to go back to Doncaster or Leeds. And so I think I already had, you know, that element from the youngsters where I was their kind of go-to in a way. And then, yeah, when it came to the seniors at Spurs, you know, you had like Ledley, Woody, Keno, you know, and I was just down from that really. So it was, you know, that's what leading is kind of about really. I think it's about having the respect to the dressing room. And, you know, I definitely had it. So
I just want to say, and again, this is, we hadn't even, our pass hadn't even crossed, but we had a loan player come in, and I don't know if it was Forest or somebody from Newcastle coming at, I think it was at Wimbledon or Wickham, and we was just chatting about generals, you know what I'm saying? And they said how good you was in regards to young players, especially, was always that where you always took time, be it on the pitch, or I even think they mentioned about you putting towards the kitty, you know, and so that was an element. And I stand 10 toes on senior players, you know, having that due diligence and bridging that gap.
100%,
you know what I'm saying? Players, and being able to say, listen, cool, I know you may not know how to chat to the gaffer, but what's the problem?
Yeah,
I'll be
correct.
that. So I think that was dope, and that just
that's nice to hear.
Naturally come across, which is
thank
dope.
you.
But just to wrap things up, talk to me about the podcast that you've got with you and Pennant.
Yes, me and Pennant. So the thing with me and Pennant, we basically grew up together, me and Pennant.
Yeah.
From the age of 7 years old, me and Penn played in like the same local team together.
Yeah, so you can look like brothers, isn't it?
Ooh, me and him?
Yeah, you're
absolutely not.
I can't.
We've got that light skin thing, but I can't grow the beard like he can. Do you know what I mean? I see you're trying.
I've been trying, my brother. I swear.
But yeah. So the podcast is called Wildcards. It is a predominantly fantasy football based podcast.
Okay.
We obviously talk about some hot topics that's going on in the Premier League or just world football in general. But the reality is we are part of a fantasy football group, like loads of people kind of up and down the country. And I was just like one day, you know what, the way this group chat pops off, I need to create something out of it.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what I did. So I said, right, Penn, I know what you're bringing to the table because he brings the fire. That's just what he does. He's just, you know, whatever the topic may be, he brings the spark and the fun and the craziness. I mean, the other day when Eza was going to Arsenal, when we thought he was going to Spurs, he brings out a pot of popcorn. Like while I'm chatting, I'm just like, you prick. You know what I mean? But we have a right laugh with it. We're only kind of going into episode 4, game week 4. But, you know, we've had really good support so far. So if anybody is listening or watching, give us a follow, subscribe and all that. Because it's, as you well know with your podcast, all of that is hugely appreciated.
It's needed, man. It's needed.
No, thanks for having me on as well.
All right,
bro.
listen, but I knew I'd be gassed and I knew I'd be intrigued in that. But listen, like I said, the Beast Mode podcast is all about giving flowers and showing love and energy. So,
Appreciate
all right,
that, man.
blessing, man. Salute.
Thank you very much.